Today on Locked On Women's Basketball, tensions were rising a little bit in Atlanta last night, so we're going to go over that, and I'm going to make a few predictions on who will take those last final spots in the WNBA playoffs, so stay tuned. This is Locked On Women's Basketball.
You are Locked On Women's Basketball, your daily podcast on women's basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey friends, Chelsea Leite here again with another Thursday solo episode of Locked On Women's Basketball. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day, whether you are driving to or from work or just hanging out. I appreciate you listening to this podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. We're going to get into a few things today. I'm going to be so honest with y'all. It's gloomy and rainy here in Toronto today, and my energy is low. So we just need to get into talking all things WNBA to get me perked back up. And so we're going to start by getting into the things that were happening in Atlanta last night. If you aren't aware, there was an Atlanta versus Las Vegas Aces game last night, played in Atlanta, and people just weren't happy with the way the fans were reacting to the game. So we're going to go over that a little bit in our first segment. And then later on in the episode, we are going to just talk about questions for the rest of the WNBA season, as well as predict the final seeding for the playoffs, because why not? That sounds fun. So as we head into the long weekend, there's just so much going on in terms of WNBA standings and, just where everybody's going to end up. Every game matters. But flipping back to Atlanta for a bit, let's start with Atlanta, because last night there was the Atlanta versus Las Vegas game. Now, it was extremely important. Don't mind me. I'm just kind of pulling up the stats from that game, the box score, just so I can kind of, give a little bit more specifics on what went down on the court. But it was a really important game given the fact that it was for the second seed. Las Vegas has been on this 10 plus game winning streak, absolutely tearing through the last half of the season, peaking at the right time. A'ja Wilson has been phenomenal. And so they go to play this game in Atlanta, and it was like the fight for the second seed, basically. And the Dream have been playing well all season. Alicia Gray's having a great season, was in MVP talks for quite a while. Ryan Howard is having an amazing season. And I think the Dream have just kind of really balanced their roster. They have a deep roster, and Carl Smesco has just figured out the best way to unload the talent that he has in a very methodical and slow burn way, in a way that they're just really strong for the entire 40 minutes of a game. Whereas a team like Las Vegas doesn't exactly have the depth that Atlanta has, but they also just have a star-studded, fantastic starting five. So that is just mostly the factor when it comes to how these teams have been doing, how they're able to perform so well. And when it comes to the Aces, it's been a lot of A'ja Wilson. Let's just call it what it is. A'ja Wilson is if she didn't have the season she had last year, I would say she's having one of the best seasons, but we were all here last year. But she is averaging 23.4 points per game this season, 10.1 rebounds, 3.1 assists, 1.6 steals per game. And they've just been on a tear. So last night they head into Atlanta, and the drama here, if I'm getting this correct, is that it's late in the game. It's a close game. The Aces only won by 6 points. It's a close game, right? And it's getting to the point where usually if you're the home court or the home arena of the team, you're going to really back your team and kind of boost them and give them energy to finish out the game and get a win. Like home court energy is such a huge part of sports. It's a really big factor. Think about like the Golden State Valkyries, how Valhalla has just kind of turned into almost like another character in the story of how these teams are able to get wins, right? So you're in Atlanta, late game, close game, second seeds on the line, like a lot's happening. A'ja Wilson goes up to the free throw line to shoot some threes. And I mean, she scored, let me find this. She scored 34 points in the entire game. With 9 rebounds, 1 assist, 1 steal, 4 blocks, with only 1 turnover and 1 foul. Normal A'ja Wilson stat line, right? So she goes up to the free throw line in the final minutes of the game and starts getting MVP chants from the Atlanta crowd. So she's from the away team. It's a close game, and she gets the MVP chants, which there are a few factors as to why. I mean, obviously she is universally beloved by basketball fans, but you also have to think about the fact that Atlanta is basically the only team in the South right now. When you think about, that area of Atlanta, South Carolina, even like down to Florida, there's like Tennessee, like there's no other WNBA team. And so Atlanta is where these South Carolina fans in particular, where A'ja Wilson is from and played at South Carolina in college, that's where they go to see her. They travel to Atlanta and they see her there. And so the fans are kind of skewed towards her, but she's also very universally beloved in the way that she goes anywhere and she'll have people with her jerseys on. She'll have people cheering for her. It's similar to, say, like a Caitlin Clark, who's going to have fans at every arena, a LeBron James. I mean, LeBron James comes to Toronto and has it feels like a LeBron James home game, right? And that's Atlanta. And I mean, that is Atlanta for A'ja Wilson, especially given like what I was saying about the South. So that happens. Game ends. Aces win. A'ja Wilson scores 34 points. And then in the post game, Ryan Howard of the Atlanta Dream says in the press conference that, and this isn't verbatim, this is me just, paraphrasing here, but Howard was a little upset, basically saying, for them to switch on Atlanta like that wasn't fair, that they should kind of be supporting the home team, that they have Gamecocks, like South Carolina Gamecocks, on their roster too, if you want to cheer from that angle, and was just kind of disappointed in the fact that late in a very important game, the fans at their home arena were cheering for A'ja Wilson and the opposing team. And so people have had their various thoughts online, as they do with things like this. For me, I kind of go back and forth about it. I understand where Ryan Howard is coming from, first and foremost. It's a playoff push. You want your home court advantage to really do its job. You want fans to be riding with you. It can be disappointing as a home team to have that happen, especially at home. And I've seen Ryan be upset about this in a different way. Like, they came to Canada a few weeks ago, and technically it was a dream home game, and that's just because of logistics, and technically Vancouver is closer to Seattle, and so more Seattle fans were there. And so Ryan Howard at that point said, it felt like a Storm home game. That's a little bit more acceptable given the circumstance that they were in Vancouver. This is in Atlanta. And so to have that happen again, where people were most like, it was a home game for you and people are cheering for the other team, it's disappointing. I get it. On the other hand, there's only currently 13 teams in the WNBA, one of which is in the South. And A'ja Wilson has a very dedicated and loyal and passionate fan base, especially when it comes to her time at South Carolina. And so people are going to travel. And I don't think that just because you go to a certain arena, you have to cheer for the team that is a home team. Like, you have to be a homer. Like, I could travel to, I don't know, like Los Angeles and wear a Toronto jersey, whether that's like NBA, WNBA next year, hockey, whatever. And doesn't mean I have to cheer for LA because I've traveled there to see whoever's playing for my team, right? So I get it. I get that, everybody has the right to go and cheer for whoever they want. I understand the frustration from Ryan Howard given that it's, a very critical point in the season. Every game matters, and you really want that home crowd push to help you energize you in these last few games, especially when it's against tough teams like the Aces. But it's just a hard situation. But yeah, to kind of finish off with how this game went, 81-75 for the Aces. They win, I believe, their 12th in a row. Let me just pull up just to make sure. But I believe it's their 12th in a row, which is, they're on a 12-game winning streak. Sure. They're now in the second seed. They clinched their playoff spot before they even got to the second seed. They're now 5.5 games behind Minnesota, which is wild because there hasn't been a team less than like 6-ish games behind Minnesota for most of the season. I don't think there's time for them to fully surpass into the number 1 seed. But I think going from the 8th seed where the Aces were like a month or two ago to now being the second seed is quite the feat, and just shows like this team is so inevitable. And I think this team has been inevitable, and I've been saying that, and I kind of, I wasn't surprised that they've gone on this streak because they're just that good of a team. A'ja Wilson is just that good of a player. And so, I'm not shocked at all, but they get the second seed now. For now, they're only 1 game ahead of Atlanta. They're still, I would say, about, I'm so bad at math. They've had 26-14, the Aces. So that puts them at 40 games. So they have 4 games. Is that true? 4 games left? 26 plus 14. I'm so bad at math. I think it's 40. Sounds like 40. Yeah. Anyway, there's 4 games left. And so, they obviously can't really, they're 5.5 games behind, Minnesota, who's only played 37 games. That's a little bit of easy math because they're at 30-7. But it would be a very small chance. I think Minnesota's going to clinch the number 1 seed soon. So, good on the Aces, and good on A'ja Wilson, who has been kind of carrying a lot of the load for them. I think trading for Nalissa Smith, people are not giving that as much of attention as it might need. I think that was such a critical move and a critical point in their season. And so that, I think they deserve all of the flowers for that. That's kind of what happened in Atlanta last night. A very long-winded explanation, but stay tuned. When we come back, we're going to answer some questions about just kind of the last few weeks of the season. And then we're going to get into predicting the final seeding for the WNBA playoffs. So stay tuned. This is Locked on Women's Basketball. Most people can't name all of their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or on your phone. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. If you've put off organizing your finances, Monarch is for you. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all of your accounts and minutes, see clear data visuals, and get smart categorization of your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. For me as a freelancer, it's really hard to kind of manage all the different streams of money I have coming in, especially when it's on an inconsistent basis as well. So having something like Monarch Money, y'all just heard me do math in the last segment for a hot second. I'm not good at math. So having a platform that can do it all for me and just kind of gives me the picture with data, which I love, is fantastic. It's definitely something that helps if you are a freelancer or just someone who's trying to manage their wealth as a young person heading into the workforce. So don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONNBA. All right, welcome back to Locked On Women's Basketball. My name is Chelsea Leite, and we are here hanging out on a Thursday afternoon, a very gloomy Thursday afternoon, actually, in Toronto. Hopefully, it's more sunny where you are listening to this. We're going to get into a few questions. I pulled a few questions from online, from the internet, to answer about the WNBA season. So we're going to get into these. The first one is, what is one thing that you enjoyed, one thing that surprised you, and one thing that's disappointed you about this season so far? One thing that I've enjoyed from this WNBA season, I think, is just how close everything is, how competitive every game is, and just like how close everything has been nearing the end of the season. You don't have a clear picture of who is going to be where in the standings. You don't have a team, I mean, other than Minnesota that has gotten really far ahead in the standings, you don't have a very clear, who is going to be in the finals. You don't have a clear picture of just like what's going to happen. And so it makes it really exciting to watch every night. And all of these games have been super exciting to watch, super fun to watch. There's been so many great players and so much to discuss when it comes to this season. So I think just all of the incredible play has been great. I mean, I've also really enjoyed watching Paige Beckers in the league as someone who has been a fan of hers for quite a while. And so, yeah, I think those are the top things that come to my head as to what I have enjoyed so far this season. One thing that has surprised me about this season, I think pleasantly, I've been surprised of Sonia Citron. I think the way that she has she's increased her output from college, which you don't see very often in the WNBA, because you go from these teams where you're the number one option in a big college program, and then you end up, sometimes, unless you're like a top, and I mean, she was the number 3 pick, but like a lot of times you're just still a rookie. You don't have the exact like green light to go out and do everything you did in college. And so to see someone like Sonia Citron increase their output, what they did in college, and just adapt so well has been really exciting, and it's super fun. She's such an enjoyable player to watch. She's so ready for the moment. You can just tell she's learning on the fly, but also came in with such like a depth of talent and IQ. And I'm really glad she ended up somewhere like Washington, where they had the time and the space to give her the playing time and the minutes that she needed to really thrive. Was an all-star in her first season, and it's just someone who's going to be a really, really solid WNBA player. And seeing the beginning of that journey has just been really fun and kind of surprising. Not that I thought that she was going to be a bad player per se, but you never know, what the output in year one is going to be. You don't know whether the exhaustion or, the transition or whatever is going to kind of slow down a player's, output. And the fun, surprising part is that she has just adapted so well. And it's been really exciting. And one thing that's disappointed me about this season so far has definitely been the injuries. I mean, just to, right off the bat, the fact that Caitlin Clark has only played 13 games this season and definitely has been, visibly injured and in pain for most of them is super disappointing, given the fact that she was supposed to have a really big year. And then you think about all of the injuries that the entire WNBA has suffered. You think about people who are out now for the season or have missed a lot of time, or the fact that teams that were doing really well just kind of fell off because of things like injuries. And I mean, Indiana's one of them. You can also talk about New York in that situation. And it's hard. Like, injuries are such an avoidable part of, or unavoidable, whatever the word is. You can't avoid injuries in sports. And so, there's a part of you that just kind of has to accept it. But at the same time, when you're seeing them at the volume that we've been seeing them this season, it's just tough. Like, it's tough to see. It's disappointing. It's sad. You feel for the players. You feel for the teams. You feel for the fans who were excited to see these players play. And it's disappointing to see that there's just been so many more injuries this year because of the tough schedule that they have, which leads me into the second kind of disappointing thing of this season. That's just been like the pushback to getting a CBA deal signed. And based on, my knowledge and what's been being said about these negotiations, the league is pretty hesitant to give the players what they're asking for. And that's disappointing, knowing how much these players work, how hard they work, how much they've given to this league and this sport, and how well they've just adapted to the extreme, blowing up of this league and their sport, and the fact that they're not getting their needs met is disappointing. So, and I will be disappointed to see if we end up in some sort of like lockout situation. So yeah. All right. Another question is, if the playoffs started today, which teams do you have advancing to the next round? Okay, I'm going to get into this a little bit after the break, but one question here is any upset teams. And I don't think anybody going into the playoffs would be a quote unquote upset. But yeah, like, and I think maybe this means like, is anybody going to upset in the first round? I think that's 100% possible. When you think about the fact of like someone like Seattle being on the lower half of the standings and then, playing up, yeah, like that, anything could happen. So that is an interesting thing to get into. But yeah, those are the questions. I realized I had less time in this segment than I thought I did. So those are the questions that we have for today. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we are going to we're going to get more into this playoff thing. We're going to get more into who I think is going to make the playoffs and what these first round matchups could look like. We'll talk about upsets a little more, potentially, and just kind of get into what could be a very, very exciting playoff first round. So stay tuned. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. We have an important request. Locked On wants to hear from you. We've put together a survey to learn more about our listeners and make your favorite podcasts even better. This is your chance to tell us what you like, what you don't, and answer questions about our advertising. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey to get started. Everyone who completes a survey will be entered for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Amazon gift cards. Again, that's lockedonpodcast.com/survey. You can also find the link in the show notes. Thanks for helping us out. All right, we are back. This is Locked On Women's Basketball. My name is Chelsea Leite. Today's Thursday afternoon. And not going to lie, it's been a slug today. It is rainy outside. I'm tired. We're heading into a long weekend. I just broke off my nail, so I have to glue it back on once I'm done recording. But we were answering a few questions, and one that came up was playoffs. Who do you think is going to make the playoffs? So I thought it would be fun to kind of go through the standings, make my predictions for who is going to be in what seed. I mean, we have anywhere from like 5 to 7, 8-ish games left for each team. So I'm going to make those predictions and then kind of guess some first round series. Can you tell my brain isn't working today? But yeah, let's get into it. I mean, obviously I think Minnesota is going to hold the first seed. They've been dominant. They're 5.5 games ahead now. And with, like 4-ish games left for some of these teams, it's going to be really hard for them to catch up. So I think that Minnesota is going to hold in the first seed from 2 to like 5. So you have Las Vegas Aces currently in second place at a 5.5 game balance from first. And then you have all the way down at 5 is New York at a 7.5 game. So that's only 2 games separating between the 2 seed and the 5 seed. And so that, given that, again, there's 4 to 7/8 games left for some of these teams, a lot can change. I could see maybe New York raising a little bit higher, but Vegas is just so hot right now. So, I don't think it's too bold to assume Vegas might hold that second seed now. We'll see. But after that, you have Phoenix Atlanta, and New York. I think Phoenix might end up going down to 5. They play New York this weekend. It's going to be a huge, huge indicator of which of these teams is going to be higher in the standings. And when it comes to that, they're at that home court advantage, area where if you're 4th, you get home court advantage. If you're 5th, you don't. And that is a huge aspect, like we were talking earlier in the episode. So my prediction for the top half is going to be Minnesota in 1st, Las Vegas in 2nd. You know what? Let's just make a bold prediction, say New York in 3rd, Atlanta in 4th, Phoenix in 5th, and then you kind of have this dip here between 5th and 6th where you get into the last seed spots. You have Indiana, Golden State, and Seattle, who are all hanging at that 10.5 to 11 game balance, fighting for those last 3 spots. Man, it is close. I could see a few days ago, I would say that the Storm were going to end up in 6, but you never know what Storm team you're getting on any given night. So, who knows? I mean, part of me still wants to say Storm at 6th. So that would be interesting. So let's just say it for the exercise we're doing. Storm at 6. Golden State, I think, is at 7. And then you have Indiana and the Sparks. Indiana's a really hard schedule for the rest of the season. Like, I don't know, like I've been looking at it all week. They play some tough teams. I'm pretty sure they still have to play Minnesota twice. And so I'm just going to guess that LA takes that last spot. And I mean, Indiana fans, please don't yell at me. But then you get a high draft pick and you could get like Flaugier or maybe even AZ Fudd or, Lauren Betts or any of the great players that are in next year's lottery. So it's not all bad. So that is who I'm going with. So that would leave like a Minnesota, if we're going with my exercise here, Minnesota versus LA in the first round. I would take Minnesota. Then you would have Golden State versus Las Vegas. Ooh, that would be interesting. I'm still going to say Vegas, but that would be really fun. If we did New York in 3rd, it would be New York versus Seattle. I could see New York taking that, but again, that would be a really fun series, just given the history between those two teams and all of the various storylines between those two teams. And then that would leave Phoenix and Atlanta, I believe, if I am getting all of this like stuff right that I've been saying over the past few minutes. So yeah, Phoenix Atlanta is a really interesting series as well. Again, given the lore, when you want to talk about things like Brittany Griner, playing her former team, when you want to talk about Alyssa Thomas being an MVP candidate. And to be honest, in my head, MVP leader right now. I don't have a vote. I want to get that just out there, but Alyssa Thomas, 7 triple doubles this season, which is more than anybody's ever done ever. 7 in one season. Wild. So those are my first round predictions. Again, the standings are going to change another like 4 or 5 times before they're said and done. And I don't think we're going to have a clear playoff picture until like the last day of the season. So could be wrong. Anything I said in the last 5 minutes could be completely wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's just fun. Let's kind of take a look for a second into what this weekend is going to give us upcoming. Let's just skip Thursday night's games because maybe you're watching this on Friday morning. Friday is Dallas versus Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta's going to be hoping for a win on that one. Indiana versus LA. That's a huge game for both teams to try and determine who's going to grab that last playoff spot. That's a big game. Minnesota versus Connecticut on Sunday. I mean, Minnesota's just going to try and, extend their lead in first a little bit more. Washington versus Golden State. Again, Golden State has every reason to try and win and give themselves a buffer to stay in the playoffs. Chicago versus Seattle. Seattle just needs to win games, man. They were supposed to win against Indiana a few days ago and they didn't. And they got absolutely, they got blown out. It was rough. And then maybe the most important game of the weekend, New York versus Phoenix. Crucial crucial for both teams. It is going to be a slugfest, and hopefully in the best way. That could be one of the best games of the season if they're both playing at a level that they should be. Saturday, August 30th at 10 p.m. Then on Sunday, Washington versus LA. Again, LA is going to want to get the win just to secure that place in the playoffs, hopefully. Indiana versus Golden State. Again, another one of those really, really tough battles for those final playoff spots. And then because it's a long weekend to head into Monday, Atlanta versus Connecticut. Again, Atlanta is really going to want to win that. Dallas versus Minnesota. Fun Paige Beckers coming home to Minnesota game. That's a fun thing. But at the same time, again, Minnesota's going to want to win that, extend their lead. LA versus Seattle on Monday night. That is a very, very interesting game given where those two teams are at in the standings right now, and could have huge playoff implications. So yeah, there's your weekend of WNBA action in a quick little snippet. We're going to end this episode here. Thanks for joining me on this journey, this little rainy day podcast. Appreciate all of the people who have been engaging over the last few ones that I've done here with questions and stuff like that. And appreciate all of the support on Locked On's channels. Make sure to go and check out that survey that I talked about in the second ad break for a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. And thank you so much for watching Locked On Women's Basketball.